Hey everyone, I hope you didn't get too bored not having notes for a couple of days, because guess what? We're back. We are on our final note packet. It's called Ecosystems and Its Relationships. It's a big fancy term. I'm just going to call it ecology. It's the study of eco, or kind of the ecosystem, how plants, animals, all that stuff kind of works together. We're tying together the whole school year right now. So let's jump in. So a lot of this, I'm warning you right now, a lot of this is going to be review for you. And that's good. You've learned this. It's either 4th or 5th grade, somewhere back in the day. So a lot of this should sound familiar. Each organism has a role in the movement of energy through an ecosystem. Okay, so we've kind of learned these words before: autotroph, heterotroph. An organism's energy role is determined by how it obtains or gets its food, and how it interacts with other organisms. So now in this ecology unit, we are focusing on how it interacts with other organisms. I don't care that this guy is a heterotroph. I care about how this guy eating this frog is going to affect the amount of bugs in the area. Because if there's less frogs, that means more bugs, because bugs eat frogs. So now we're focusing on how do organisms interact or work together in an environment. But this guy is a heterotroph, and this frog also is a heterotroph, so you do have to keep those words in your head. Each of the organism in an ecosystem fills the energy role, either producer, consumer, or decomposer. There are only 3 options. So producers, we've already talked about this word once, back some unit forever ago. Producer is another word for autotroph. Okay, so grass is a producer, and grass is also an autotroph. You are a consumer because you need to consume or eat food in order to get energy. I know for dinner tonight, I had burrito, which is kind of like Chipotle. Okay, so I consume food just like this grasshopper, just like this shrew, and just like this owl. You're going to understand these other words, primary, secondary, and tertiary, later on. And then decomposers. We've talked about this when we learned about fungi. Fungi are decomposers because they break down dead stuff. So let's break these down a little bit more. Energy enters the ecosystem via or by sunlight. The ultimate source of energy for every living thing on Earth is the sun. You eat the sun. If you eat a hamburger, that hamburger was a cow. That cow ate grass. And the grass ate sunlight. Okay, so everything you eat, it doesn't matter if you're vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian, keto, omnivore, it doesn't matter what you are, you eat the sunlight. Some organisms can capture sunlight and store it as food, photosynthesis. You do not have that ability. Okay, only plants, algae, and some bacteria have the ability to undergo photosynthesis like these flowers are doing. And you can kind of see it's most of them. Most of the flowers are actually pointing towards the sun. There's a couple that aren't, but we learned about that. It's called phototropism. It's moving towards the sunlight. A little bit more on producers. So an organism that can make its own food used to be called a autotroph, and it still is. We're still going to use those words interchangeably, but now we're going to throw in the new word called producers, because now we are more, remember how I said with that picture of the bird and the frog, I'm more worried about the whole ecosystem, the whole food chain. I don't care that this little guy is an autotroph anymore. I care that he produces energy for something else to eat. Okay, so we're focusing all together here on the whole ecosystem. So autotroph and producers means the exact same thing. Producers are the source of all food in the ecosystem. Like I said on that last slide or 2 slides ago, it doesn't matter what you eat. You eat sunlight. Let's say you really like calamari, which is squid, or you really like fish, which is fish. You might think, well, they don't eat the sunlight. Okay. Well, fish eat, some of them, eat algae. Algae is a plant. Plants eat sun. Boom. Well, you might say, ooh, I eat big fish like tuna. Well, tuna eats little fish. Little fish eat algae. Algae is a plant. Okay? Boom. You might say, oh, I hate anything that's green. I only eat steak. Well, again, like I said, that steak ate grass. The grass ate the sunlight. You eat producers. somehow. It's the source, it's the bottom of every single food chain. Some producers can use chemicals to produce energy. It's likely bacteria or archaea. So what you're seeing here, this is in Yellowstone National Park, and it looks super duper pretty. And I'm telling you now, don't touch this. Archaea and bacteria actually live in here because archaea specifically are extremophiles. Remember that. This, what looks like a nice pool, is actually a pot of very hot acid. If you would stick your finger into this water, or not water, when you pulled your hand back out, you wouldn't have a finger. It eats you alive insanely fast. There's an article out there somewhere about some guy who is stupid and he jumped in here. And by the time the police got there and the fire people and the ambulance to go get him out, he was dissolved almost completely down to his bones. So this is very extreme. Only archaea and very certain bacteria can live in here. But it's kind of cool because sometimes archaea actually can turn this acid into energy. So I think that's super duper cool that they have that crazy adaptation that allows them to do that, whereas no one else can. So consumers, this is us. They need to consume food. So they are heterotrophs. We send you at lunchtime to go consume your food, your Rice Krispie treats, your Switches, your beef jerky, all that junk, okay? We cannot make our own food. Instead, we must actually eat. Oh, hey, spoiler alert. Watch that picture. They must actually eat food in order to obtain energy. So this lioness, she is obviously eating this zebra in order to get energy, in order to power her body for the day. I'll click off it real quick for you. Consumers are classified based on what they eat, and I hope these words sound familiar as I pop them up on the screen. Herbivores eat only plants. An example of an herbivore could be a caterpillar, a rabbit, a deer. This skull and this animal over here is a buffalo, not a bison. This is a buffalo, much less cute. Okay, so these guys have very flat teeth. You can see here in the skull, all of them are very, very flat. You have flat teeth in the back of your mouth. Go ahead, take your tongue and kind of reach on back there. All of those are flat, and they help to grind down leaves. This cow, this buffalo, excuse me, all it eats all day is grass, and it's gonna chomp and chomp and chomp and chomp in order to grind down those leaves. You might notice that when you eat steak, it might take a couple bites, and your teeth are pretty good at ripping through it. But to eat a leaf or celery or something really fibrous like kale or collard greens, those take a little bit of time, a little bit of chewing to really break down. So having flat teeth, it allows you to grind it down. The next type is a carnivore. These animals eat only animals or meat. So wolves, walruses, snakes, this lion and lioness, they eat only meat. And you can see their teeth are drastically different because they're very sharp in order to stab, kill, and tear their food. Reach your tongue over to the sharp teeth in your mouth right up front. You have a lot of very sharp teeth in your mouth as well. So you're actually going to be on the next slide. But these lions, they won't ever just sit down and chow down on some plant. It's not going to happen. Their mouth is not adapted to do that. Their inside is not adapted to do that. Their intestine, their stomach. And last but not least, this is us. We are an omnivore. We eat both plants and animals. Crows, bears, humans, this gorilla, this chimpanzee. In this chimpanzee picture over here to the right, you can actually see your mouth pretty perfectly. You have sharp teeth up front, and they have some flat teeth in the back. So that is basically your mouth. His teeth are nice and white too. The gorilla, if you could see inside his mouth, that actually might be a girl, inside her mouth. Her mouth is very similar as well. Sharp teeth up front, flat teeth in the back. There's really good advantages to this. Animal meat takes a long time to kind of hunt. You gotta really fight for it. And then plants offer a lot of really good micronutrients that you can't obtain from eating animals. So eating a little bit of both really is an advantage. And then the last group is decomposers. Remember, these break down dead stuff. So if there were only producers and consumers, raw materials such as carbon dioxide and nitrogen would stay locked up inside of dead bodies. So everything that's ever alive on Earth dies. It's just a fact of life. When that happens, it starts to break down. Dead grass eventually goes away after you're done cutting your grass. The leaves in fall, they all fall off the trees, and then eventually they decompose. The dead deer on the side of the road. My ferret, Whiskers, I buried him in the ground when I was just a little baby. He's not even in there anymore. He decomposed. And that's all because of decomposers. They kind of went in there, got in the grave, and this guy, the dead deer, he's going to need to be moved first, or she. That looks like a little girl, probably. Someone will correct me. Certain organisms in an ecosystem prevent this from happening, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But breaking down dead stuff is crucial so that we can recycle, just like plastic and glass and cardboard. You know how you take those to the recycle plant or the blue recycle bins at the dumps. You have to recycle nutrients as well. There's only so much nitrogen, so much oxygen, so much carbon dioxide in an ecosystem. We do need to keep that alive. We need to keep it moving. So decomposers help that. So decomposers break down biotic wastes. And that was your bell ringer today. Biotic means living waste, and dead organisms, and returns the raw materials into the ecosystem. So decomposers break down living stuff once it has died. So that dead grass after you mowed, the dead leaves, the dead ferret, the dead deer, anything that dies. Even dead mushrooms get decomposed, even though they're decomposers. So decomposers really are crucial to nature's recycling. Just like I kind of said on the last slide with the glass, the cardboard, plastic, all that stuff needs recycled. Hint, hint, recycle cardboard. Stuff in nature needs recycled too. Broken down stuff can be used again from other organisms. So I think that's pretty cool. I mean, just rather than stuff dying and having big piles of sad, dead deer on the side of the road, they do eventually break down, and new lush grass is going to grow up in place of it, or maybe a new tree, or maybe a little shrub or bush or something. So mushrooms, bacteria, and mold all act as decomposers. In this slide right here, we can see some mushrooms growing, but bacteria and mold can be decomposers as well. So we're switching topics. I'm actually going to do this on a separate video, so maybe pause. Maybe it's going to be linked together. I don't know. It's really a mystery. So good luck figuring that out.